6:30 has arrived. I'd like to call order our first study session of the year for Urbana School District 116. Roll call, please.
Member Hall.
Here.
Member Ogalski.
Here.
Member Carter is here. Vice President Exum. Here. And President Pulaski.
Here. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications of tonight's agenda? No, hearing none. Are there any citizens here present who would like to make a statement before the board? If so, please fill out a goldenrod form at the back of the room and hand it to our recording secretary, Lori Johnson. All right, there are no citizen statements tonight. There is no call for executive session after tonight's meeting. Is there a move to approve tonight's agenda?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Student ambassador reports. Is there a report tonight for the students? All right. There are no administrative reports tonight. No policy review. So let's move right into our first study topic: Return to Learn plan presentation.
Okay. So, is Susan on? I know I told her 6:40 and she's probably not there yet. So okay, great. Yes, thank you, Angie. So I did ask one of our board attorneys to join us. So she's been in many more conversations around the state through Robinson Schwartz around some of the things that we're going to talk about this evening. And so I wanted her to just give us her perspective, the legal perspective. I know I've been receiving quite a few questions about masking and some of the social distancing requirements that we've had in place in the past, now that we are seeing the new variant and some increased cases. So I thought it would be relevant for Susan to be here tonight for specific questions. John's going to tag team this with me a little bit toward the end, but we're going to jump right in. So, John, did we turn the blower off? Okay. All right, so jumping right into this. Again, we're using the CDC Guidance as our foundation for our strategies for everyday operations. Our goal continues to be to have as many students as possible learning in person and in school, while also protecting the health and safety of everyone in our school community. I know we can't predict what this school year will bring. I say this all the time. I wish I had a crystal ball, but we don't. But again, we have so many other initiatives that we need to focus on, including academic challenges, as we discussed in the spring when we looked at a lot of our MAP data. We know our students are still struggling social emotionally, and we're still doing everything we can to really focus on mental health. So I know this part of the world is still really, really important, but just to give us perspective, we really are hoping to have as close to a normal school year as we possibly can, while we also do what we can to operate our school safely. So the updated CDC guidance, Catherine will share this out, and all the links are live. So board members, if you want to utilize any of those links, you can, but when we share it with the public, we'll also have those available for our families and parents who want to look at that guidance for themselves. So again, we're going to follow the same strategies that we have in the past, promoting everyone staying up to date on their routine vaccinations. We're going to talk about vaccines later in the presentation. Implementing policies that encourage students and staff to stay home when sick. We've been doing that, and we'll continue to do that. We have updated our ventilation systems, reinforcing proper hand hygiene and respiratory etiquette. We had a 2-day administrator academy with all of our principals. So we've kind of talked through this with all of our building administrators as well, making sure that they are allowing their teachers and staff to build their schedules around hand washing, making sure, students are still washing their hands before they go to lunch and after snacks. As you heard in the spring, we are returning to breakfast in the classroom. So that'll be something that will be returning at the elementary level. So we'll incorporate hand hygiene in those spaces as well. And again, we have been following enhanced cleaning and sanitation protocols. We'll continue those as we already have those in place. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these next couple of slides just because we've talked about this at the board level. We've made this information available to the public for a while now. So everyone hopefully is aware of the community levels. As I've mentioned before, we are in a regional, our county is part of an area where we have 2 regional hospitals. And so the new guidance, well, it's not really new anymore, but when it was revised months ago, the changes in community levels and the metrics are very much tied to hospitalization and COVID admissions and inpatient beds and the total number of COVID cases. So our community, unfortunately, really is impacted by that because we have Carl and OSF in our backyard, basically. But the community levels are driven by these 3 indicators. New COVID-19 admissions and the percent of staff in patient beds occupied represent the current potential for strain on the health system. As you know, we've discussed here as well that we have 3 levels. I know this probably is a grainy picture, but that's copied right from the CDC website, which shows the metrics behind the high, medium, and low, and the numbers that the CDC uses, and our public health department utilizes those same numbers as well. I'm going to jump right to the bullets that really talk a little bit more about each level. So most of the summer, if you've been checking, we have our county, Champaign County has been in the high area. There was a point in the spring where we were in the medium level, where we were really kind of focusing on our testing, on really making sure we were minimizing the risks for severe illness for our immunocompromised folks. The CDC does say in high levels to consider implementing universal masking and other layered prevention strategies. So let's get right into some of those prevention strategies that we've had in the past and talk about those a little bit and what our recommendations are for those. Is Susan in yet, John? Okay. So if she needs to interrupt me, or if anybody, board members, you can jump in at any time. So Susan, if you need to clarify anything, just jump right in, okay? Okay, so let's talk about masks, I know, which is on everyone's mind. Currently, the CDC recommends, but does not mandate, universal indoor masking in communities with high transmission levels. Currently, there is no federal or state mask mandate in place in the state of Illinois. However, the district still recommends mask wearing, especially during high transmission. At all levels, and we discussed this in the spring, and this will continue to be something that we reinforce at the building level and throughout the district. At all levels, people can wear a mask based on their personal preference, informed by their personal level of risk. People with symptoms, a positive test, or exposure to someone with COVID should wear a mask. Anyone who chooses to wear a mask will be supported in their decision to do so at any community level, whether we're high or low. And as you look around the room, there are many people who make that choice, and typically when I'm in the buildings around students, I tend to wear my mask, and it just depends. So it really is everyone's personal choice. So we are not mask mandating that people wear masks, but we are still strongly recommending it. Physical distancing. CDC, currently there are no federal or state mandates for social distancing in place. The CDC does recommend using cohorting in areas of high level of transmission. We'll continue to cohort or provide additional physical distancing in areas of increased positivity or transmission. We are going back to For our lunch times, we have encouraged administrators and principals to continue to utilize the outside spaces however they can this fall and for lunches and things like that. Last year, we increased the number of lunchroom supervisors at every building so the buildings could spread out their lunch times to help provide more space, especially at the elementary level where the students are kind of right up on each other as they eat. And so we've allowed that. We've continued that this year. We did not take away those additional lunchroom supervisors at the elementary level so they can continue to spread their lunch times out and provide more time and more space for students to eat lunch. Those are the main measures that we're going to take for physical distancing, where we are allowing teachers to go back to setting their classrooms up and utilizing their spaces within their classrooms as they need to promote better student learning. Testing. So the CDC's recommendations for school continues to be to offer diagnostic testing for symptomatic students and staff and those who have been in close contacts with individuals with COVID-19. The CDC and the district encourage the continued use of home tests. So I know in the spring, a lot of our families were really taking advantage of the government program and utilizing those home tests. I've provided the link here. We've provided that link to our administrators. We've asked them to share that link. I just went in recently and requested 8 more tests for our home. So we are really going to allow families, if they take a home test, they can call us and let us know, and we'll still excuse them. Just based on that information, staff, however, do need to provide a little more information for us if they test positive using a home test. But families, if they are utilizing home tests and call and let us know that a child has tested positive, we'll accept that and move forward. The district will continue to offer diagnostic testing as the CDC recommends, but mostly using our school nurses. So the surveillance teams and the heavy testing that we were doing took a lot of time away from instruction. And we are really hoping to really maximize our instructional time this year. So we have scaled back the large testing team that we had, but really focusing on our school nurse. Our testing had really dropped off at the end of the year. We had a very small number of our middle school students and high school students were taking advantage of shield testing. We had very few staff members all summer, even through the summer school programs, coming in to test. If we see we really need to increase that, we can. But starting the year, we are going to really utilize our nurses. We do have 2 of our testers that we're keeping on staff to really help us if we have outbreaks or if we need to send testing professionals to a school for whatever reason. We do have 2 of our remaining testing professionals on hand, and they will be supporting drive-through testing, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So our nurses will consistently test students. We're going to look at the nurse criteria here on the next slide. And our district nurse, Nurse Amy Marks, is talking with CPHD, and she's been following the Idph guidance, and she'll be meeting with the nurses when they return. They're not back on calendar yet. But they have a very specific criteria that they're going to look at. We are still encouraging parents and staff who experience frequent symptoms due to allergies or other health-related issues with sinuses or drainage or any of those things. It would really help if families bring in a doctor's note. So we're not asking to test your child all the time or every few days if they have a runny nose or something that might be attributed to some other health condition that they have. So we really are going to ask families to do that. I know Nurse Amy's going to do that, and we've talked to all of our building administrators about really working with families to get those doctor's notes in. So this is a scaled down version of what the nurses are going to use as their look-fors when they have symptomatic students and staff. They have these are the four basic areas though. So we are encouraging them to have conversations with the family, talk to the students, ask if they've had anyone in the home who has tested positive, if they've been in close contact with anyone who's been positive. Will be kind of our first number one question, so the nurse knows in what direction they need to move with whatever symptoms the student might have. Fever is another big indicator right now, especially I think for the adults that we've seen recently who have tested positive with the new variant. Fever has been something that has accompanied that, so the nurses are really going to be asking questions about fever and have students taking medicine before they come, and really trying to monitor whether kids have been given fever reducing medication and those kinds of things. But fever will be another criteria that they're going to look for. New cough of an unknown origin. Again, we do have students who have drainage or allergy issues who do tend to be constant coughers. But if you have someone that has a new cough that isn't typical, will be something that they'll look for. And then new loss of taste or smell. So contact tracing, close contacts and quarantines. So as of now, schools are not required to conduct contact tracing. Contact tracing took an exorbitant amount of our time, Angie's time, the nurse's time, and it was necessary for a long, for most of the year. However, the CDC recommends notifying individuals identified as close contacts, but we're not going to be doing the really strict contact tracing that we were doing before. With the addition of home testing, I think that has added another layer that really was putting a strain on us at the end of the year to keep up with all the contact tracing. So we're really going to rely on people to be honest and self-report and keep us in the loop on what's going on when they have symptoms. We do have to report positive cases. So the state law requires schools to notify public health authorities of any known positive cases or suspected cases of COVID-19. So we'll continue to do that. Individuals who test positive, we're still following the same quarantine guidelines. Well, I guess I shouldn't call it a quarantine, but more of an exclusion guideline. Is people who test positive will be excluded from school for 5 days. This is where we're really relying on our district health policies related to student illnesses, allowing the district to require students and staff displaying specific symptoms of illness to stay home. The length of time will depend on the symptoms and the illness. If we suspect or we know it's COVID, then that exclusion will be for 5 days. If it is, the stomach flu or some other illness that we, typically would see in schools, we'll follow our district health policies that are already in place. As we've said many times, symptomatic students and staff should stay home until they're symptom-free, no matter whether it's COVID or some other bug or stomach bug or virus that you might be experiencing. We're asking that you stay home for 24 hours with no fever, vomiting, diarrhea, or fever-reducing medication, which was just on the next slide. So I'm going to skip ahead. Quarantine students. So students who are at home because they're positive, we still are required to provide assignments for those kiddos. So as we were doing all year, this isn't new, and so we'll continue to work with our teachers to make sure that families have access to the assignments that the students might be missing while they're at home. That could be packets, worksheets, Clever, the Google Classroom I know is really big at the middle school and high school level. We did have some teachers who were recording or sending videos or things like that for the students to access, especially at the higher grades, not so much at elementary. So that is something we're still required to do, and again, we're kind of experts at that now. We had to do it all last year. We'll continue to provide that for any of our students who need work while they're at home. So one of the only remaining prevention measures or mitigation mandates from the governor's office and throughout the state is the vaccinator test. And this is strictly for staff members. So recently or earlier in the summer, the governor extended the executive order for vaccinator tests. So until the order is lifted, we're still requiring staff to be fully vaccinated. And if they're not fully vaccinated, they do need to test weekly. Again, we were one of the few districts in our area, and as Susan has told me, in maybe a wider range than Central Illinois, who were actually still providing in-district options for staff to test. Most districts, unvaccinated staff were expected to go to Walgreens or Myers or somewhere else and get themselves tested and then report those results. But we offered in-district drive-through testing all year, and we're going to continue that as well. So I'm going to pass the next couple slides to John.
Yep, and as Dr. Ivory Tatum alluded to, I'm really excited about the level of testing we've been able to maintain in the district. We had, as we kind of adjusted things throughout the summer and the year, a lot of our testing staff have found other jobs and moved on to other positions. But we have been able to have enough staff to maintain testing throughout the summer. We did a drive-through testing on Thursdays and then have expanded that. For the start of the new school year, we're going to expand it again so that we will have an option for mornings. A lot of people had very positive comments about the morning testing. We'll no longer be able to do that at Comcast, as that will be hosting some other programming, but we will be moving that to the Michigan Street door number 6 at the middle school on Mondays from 7 to 8 a.m. And in addition to that, we will be continuing the Tuesday and Thursday drive-through testing at Yankee Ridge that we had all last year. So our hopes are that having multiple locations and multiple times, this will be as convenient for all the staff and students as possible. And just to add on to what Dr. Ivory Tatum said, I'm excited that we're really leading our area and probably the entire portion of the state and the amount of in-district testing that we're doing for this coming year. So we'll continue to evaluate additional testing for indoor sports and extracurriculars, and then continue. We've had some kind of special testings post-New Year's and post-spring break in the past that have also been very popular with staff. So we'll continue those as well. Kind of going right along with the testing, last year we had such a high volume of testing that it was great that we had really statistically significant data that we were able to track along with everything that was happening in the county, track at a district level, and be able to keep a really close eye on what was happening in our schools and in our district. This year, since we're no longer doing the in-class testing, which accounted for between 1,200 and 1,500 tests a week throughout the entirety of last year. Since we're doing that, the smaller number of total district tests is not going to provide as statistically significant data for us to follow throughout this coming year. And as we do that, the signal to noise ratio is going to be a lot less desirable, so we're going to have a lot noisier data. It'll be a lot harder to interpret. We're also, as we've been promoting home testing and for staff to do home tests, especially staff, we're requiring that if they have positive home tests, that they also do a positive test within the district so that we can give them their mandated COVID leave time. That is also affecting our statistical numbers as we go into this next year, as well as many of the staff who are testing because they are fairly confident that they're already positive. So between those four things, we're making a decision this year to archive all of our existing data. It's great. It'll still be available on the website. But for future months moving forward, we feel like there'll be a lot better district data at the county level, so that we're going to be relying on the county data to make decisions and pointing the community members to the county data for our moving forward COVID statistics. Also exciting this year, we are going to be providing another vaccination clinic coming up. We'll have one very soon here on August the 12th from 1 to 3, and we did determine the location. We were just waiting to make sure that there weren't any sports conflicts, but that'll be once again in the small gymnasium at the high school. This will be for any staff and students 5 or over for initial vaccinations or booster vaccinations. We're also excited to hear about the new bivalent Omicron vaccine that's going to be coming soon. I've heard possibly as soon as September. We've already had some talks with CUPHD about offering another vaccine booster clinic when the new bivalent vaccine is out. So we're very excited about that. And again, as far as other districts in the area, we're really leading the way. There are not other districts who are offering these sorts of resources to staff and students. So I'm really proud to be a part of that, and really proud that that's something that we can continue to offer this year.
Thanks, John. And I just want to put in another plug for vaccination. I know our staff numbers are really high. Our student numbers are not as high. We still, as a district, believe vaccination is a priority, and because it does reduce the risk of hospitalization and serious illness. We encourage families to take advantage of these in-district opportunities to get vaccinated right here, and we'll make it very easy for you. We want people to kind of think of it as, chicken pox and measles and hepatitis. My kid had to get some vaccines before he could, go to the U of I, and they want to see all the vaccines that you have before you, come on their campus as a student. So we really want families to think of this as a similar vaccine. We know COVID is going to continue to be part of our lives, and one of the best ways that we can keep ourselves from getting really, really sick and those around us from being really, really sick is to get vaccinated. Moving on, I am not a public health expert nor a doctor, so I am not going to spend a lot of time talking about monkeypox, but I did want to put a few just resources. I know I've had a few questions, people asking about the monkeypox vaccine and some of these other questions that I've kind of added to this slide. So I'd encourage people to utilize the CUPHD website. They have some monkeypox information there. From what I know from when I created these slides, we had 2 confirmed cases in our county. That may be not the case now, but
Sorry, could you say that again?
whoops, my
Sorry.
watch is talking to me. I know the majority of the monkeypox cases in our state are in the Chicago area, but we have had a couple cases here in Champaign County, so I thought it was really important for families to just have some information. Those links again are live, and the symptoms are there, how you can lower your risk of spreading it, and go to the CUPHD website. They have some good resources for us. And then I think the next slide is also additional resources, and this is new information that I just received a couple days ago. I had to share this with our administrators because it was new for us. Per Julie Pride, starting August 15th, CUPHD will no longer reach out to persons who test positive for COVID. What happened in the past is, our staff would inform us. We are legally responsible to make sure CUPHD is aware of when people test positive, and then CUPHD would follow up with those folks with some specific information about how their symptoms and how long they needed to stay at home. After August 15th, that will no longer happen. So they shared that with school districts. They've been sharing it pretty widely throughout the community, so everyone's aware of that. They'll continue to monitor the COVID-19 levels, the transmission levels. They'll still work with us when we have outbreaks and support us as we need them, but they are no longer have the resources, so a lot of their grants and some of their other resources are being diverted in other areas. And so they are going to be relying on us to kind of make sure that we're monitoring our positivity, and then they will be available to us when we need them. I also included a resource guide, a community resource guide that UIUC has shared, if that is of interest to anyone as well. I think that is the last official slide. Susan, you still there? We're going into questions, so.
Board members, student ambassadors, any questions?
I have a question. Susan, this is Brenda Carter, board member. I was just curious if, what happens basically if we have an unvaccinated employee that does not test? Are they still able to come into work or not? Are they paid or are they not? Things like that.
Okay, so according to the executive order, it maintains an effect as it was before. So staff that does not provide evidence of vaccination and does not provide evidence of a negative test at least weekly must be excluded. Different districts handled whether or not that was paid differently, but typically it is unpaid.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because I've heard a little bit of both ways. And then if you are vaccinated, and for some crazy reason do get COVID, are they still able to get paid? Maybe that should be for Dr. Ivory Tatum.
COVID leave. So yes, so the COVID leave is still part of that. I mean, it's part of school code now that we are required to provide COVID leave for people who can prove that they're vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, unfortunately, you're not able to get your COVID leave returned to you. So Susan, you can, 5 days, up to 5 days. Susan can add to
Right, and that continues. It's much narrower than the initial exceptions that were included for leave when we were in 2020, 2021. But if you are vaccinated, then you are granted administrative leave days when you meet those criteria: positive test, a minor with the positive that has to be isolated. And that continues until we're no longer under a disaster proclamation. So that is still the case. There was actually a disaster proclamation issued today for monkeypox. It is not clear how those two are going to overlap. But so long as the COVID ones continue, it's pretty clear the paid administrative leave days will continue.
All right, thank you, Susan.
Any other questions?
Just a quick one. Did you already mention, I missed, funding? Are we still getting grants for the shield testing from the state or federal or anywhere like that? I know we had gotten them earlier on.
So the Binex Now tests are still free to us. I don't know how much longer they will continue to be, but we utilized them all summer. We're still utilizing them. We've still been working directly with Idph to report all of our positive tests. We still have a reporting mechanism, so they know that we're still testing people. They know that we're still reporting our positives through their the Idph system is kind of how they're tracking it. So as long as we continue to hold up our part and are providing the results in the timely manner that we're required to, they have not put a sunset yet on the free testing. Shield testing, I'm gonna let John maybe, we had a lot of discussions about shield this summer, so.
Yep, and so part of the decision, we've decided to focus this year on the Binax testing. For our now very limited staff, it's a lot easier. You get instant results. The shield testing, in addition to taking a little bit more time to transport it to the testing facility, at the start of the shield testing, they were kind of getting us results by that night, earlier 10 to midnight. Towards the end of the testing, sometimes it was bleeding into the next day. And at that point, we've had students who tested one morning who are coming up positive, who'd now been in the school for a day and a half. So that was another reason that we decided to focus on the Binax testing, where we can do internal reading of results and be able to get a result in about 15 minutes. So even if it's not quite as accurate, it's still getting that a day earlier is a huge benefit to the district.
Any other questions? All right, I have a quick one. I mean, last year we had a memorandum of understanding with the teachers union with regards to testing, and I was wondering, the fact that we don't have one this year, what's different, I guess, with regards to the governor's proclamation for vaccine or test? I mean, I just wonder what the difference is, I guess.
So we will be meeting with UEA. They're not back yet, still, since it's still summer, but we'll be discussing this with them soon. But
Okay.
but since it's part of the executive order, it's not something we can opt out and choose not to do. We have to follow the vaccinate or test, weekly testing provision, no matter what.
Okay.
So Susan, you can add to that if you want, but I think you've said that too. Yep.
So it's coming, in other words.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, and your MOU incorporated that in a lot of other things too.
Absolutely.
So you can continue it because you have to, but given your relationship with the union up to now, I can't imagine that it's going to be an issue.
Yeah. And because we're still making it pretty convenient and accessible for staff, and our unvaccinated staff, which is just a small number of people. I think last year was maybe, 45-ish folks throughout the whole district. Of a district of 900 people, that's not very many staff members. They were in a great routine, and they, we had a procedure for them to report their results, and we never had really any issues with it. So I don't foresee us having any issues, talking about this with the UEA when we have our first meeting, so.
Any last questions? All right, thank you very much.
We will need to, the return to learn plan has to be approved. So we will kind of bring this back to the August 23rd business meeting, just as everything that we've discussed tonight as an approval from the board.
Thanks.
Right, Susan? Yes, okay.
All right. With the board's discretion, I'd like to divert from our given agenda, since this is kind of the first time we've had a 6:30 meeting and we got a quick start. A citizen who wished to make a statement before the board just missed it by a couple minutes. So with the board's discretion, I think I'd like to allow her to give her public comment at this point. Melissa Shepline? Just hold it once and then hope it turns green. There you go. It's got a delay.
Okay. Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Melissa Shepline, and I'm the parent of a district second grader. I'm here this evening to support the inclusion of the dual language decision, strand or whole school model in your goal setting session this evening. I've been following this issue, including the lengthy May 17th meeting where the topic dominated public comments for almost 2 hours and where the DL committee's work was shared. Personally, I'm undecided about the strand versus whole school model. I'm trying to keep an open mind. My child is a DL student. I've had the opportunity to learn more about each program in the past few months and can see the merits of both. I heard Ms. Ricconi and Dr. Wiemelt articulate that with the growing immigrant population in our community and throughout the state, our district's need for bilingual teachers and staff is real and pressing, especially when paired with the challenges with teacher recruitment and retention, which my family has experienced firsthand. In that meeting, several of you raised important questions that you would like explored to be able to make a decision. As you set your goals this evening, I urge you to very clearly articulate what information you need from the district to make your decision. My understanding is that because of the Open Meetings Act, you can only hammer out your request in a meeting such as this. I urge you to take the time this evening to be explicit in your ask to the district. As you know, should a whole school model be adopted, this will create the need for redistricting and impact many of your constituents. Right now, as the survey data shows, it's an unpopular proposal, and as such, I hope the decision is made with care. The board could clearly articulate what specific information do you need to be able to vote. On May 17th, I heard you ask for host school scenarios with pros and cons for each site and options for how to reassign the monolingual students, a detailed budget, an understanding of both immediate and future staffing needs based on demographic projections, a legal assessment of a proposal, and proposed new district maps. The board could also make clear who in the community board members expect to be engaged and consulted in this next phase. On May 17th, the survey data collected was dismissed, citing as reasoning that it was apparent stakeholders were not fully aware of impacts changing the model would mean. So therefore, might the board charge the DL committee to design a survey of stakeholders which produces data, however favorable or unfavorable to the whole school model, that can be accepted, analyzed, and properly considered? As you know, policymakers may choose to move forward with an unpopular plan, instead emphasizing other valuable criteria to drive a decision. But full consideration of these opinions should still be a part of any democratic process. I also heard board members ask for more information about the views of ELL families, especially from Dr. Williams, who were underrepresented in previous data collection, and for DL faculty and staff voices to be amplified and better understood in this next stage of the conversation. Finally, several board members mentioned including the wider community in this next phase. While monolingual families were understandably not the focus of the committee's work, the recommendation will have a very real impact on them, and they have not been formally consulted by the district. Of course, working with the district on setting a deadline to receive this information and a timeline for moving forward. Finally, should the board deliver a no vote, the district, as they've said, will need to be ready to pivot to bolstering the strand model, likely even changing it to meet the challenges. From listening to concerns raised at the meeting, any robust reimagining could include ways to improve school climate at strand host schools, to be welcoming to our ELL families and DL faculty and staff, and specific ways that families, DL and monolingual, can volunteer and be supportive of a school with a strand model. If our DL teachers and staff have needs which volunteers could mitigate, let's get moving on that and organize some assistance to make their lives easier. To the district, I want to say that I and possibly others could be persuaded by a whole school model, but you're going to have to help some of us see your vision. Might there be a model dual language whole school somewhere out there in the United States that you could tout as an example of what could be possible? Maybe it's a school 1,000 miles away from here. Help us visualize your dream school. And if we can't make it happen, let's figure out how to make some key features a reality for our district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Also, with the board's discretion, I'd like to move action item 11.2 forward because we have people here who are here for that.
Since they're here in person.
Here in person.
Is that
Board,
okay?
all right. All right, let's move to 11.2, administrative personnel items.
Mr. Harper and Mr. Napper, would you come up to the table, please?
We're bumping you up so you don't have to sit here for another hour.
On May 11th of 2022, the longtime director of the Before and After School program announced her retirement effective May 31st. The director of Before and After School programming job vacancy was posted in late June following revisions to the job description. The position posting was available to external and internal candidates while being advertised locally and nationally. Applications for the position were accepted for approximately 1 month from the posting date. On July 25th, the team of UEA members, building administrators, and district administrators interviewed the 3 candidates who applied, all of whom were internal candidates. 2 of the 3 candidates moved on to level 2 interviews based on the recommendations of the level 1 interview committee. Based on input from the Level 1 and Level 2 interview committee, the two finalists had different strengths and ideas about how to move the program forward to make experiences better for the students in Urbana. Today, the district administrative team is recommending that Mr. Terry Napper and Mr. Chad Harper serve as co-directors of the before and after school programs. Because of the need for after-school care and enrichment in all of our schools, coupled with the uncertainty of grant funding for after-school programs that always exists, it is recommended to move to a shared leadership model. With nearly 30 years in the district, Mr. Chad Harper started in Urbana in 1993 as a paraprofessional at Yankee Ridge Elementary. During his tenure at Urbana, Mr. Harper has served as a teacher's aide, a lunchroom supervisor, a recreational leader, the Gentlemen's Club coordinator, summer maintenance worker, DPW site coordinator, and a national trainer for after-school programs. Mr. Harper attended both Kishwaukee College and Parkland College, where he studied both criminal justice and general studies. Currently, he's taking courses to finish his degree online. Chad and his wife, Mrs. Latanya Smith Harper, have 5 beautiful children and 8 grandchildren, while also serving as foster parents for several teenagers throughout the years. With over 35 years in the district, Mr. Terry Napper started in Urbana in the 1980s. During his tenure at Urbana School District 116, Mr. Napper has worked at Leal, Wiley, and Urbana Middle School, serving the district as a lunchroom supervisor, recreation leader, Leal site coordinator, and also a national trainer for after-school programs featuring the Funtastic Games. When not working at the school district, you can find Mr. Napper out and about the Champaign-Urbana community, supporting students and families through his church or on the gospel music scene. Mr. Napper has an associate's degree from Parkland College and a bachelor's degree from Eastern Illinois University. Terry and his wife, Mrs. Rhonda Napper, of 33 years, have 3 amazing sons and 3 grandchildren. It is our privilege and pleasure to recommend 2 longtime employees of the district willing to lead the before and after school programs. And that is what we are bringing to the board this evening.
All right. Board, is there a motion?
I move for approval.
I heartily second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Hassan-Adka?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Ogalski?
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exon?
Yes.
And President Pulaski?
Yes, thank you both and congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
You can turn on your mic and say something too. You don't have to sing.
Do you take requests?
Just put, yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So do you want me to sing a song or have you guys sing a song?
You don't want to sing.
I just want to say thank you very much for all that you guys do, and we're going to try our best to do what we can for the kids and for the parents of the after-school program. Okay.
Mr. Harper?
I reiterated, 30 years, we're going to continue to try to just add on to this program and do the things that we've seen and things that we've trained for, and just try to bring more kids in and try to touch, more kids in the community and help them in a positive fashion. Terry and I have been at this for a long time, and hopefully a lot longer.
Yes.
We appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Yes.
Everybody, oh, I don't know about that.
Just another announcement for people watching at home or who might be watching this later. The program has been housed at Leal, the office, for many, many years. Mr. Harper, his home base is Dr. Williams. So we're going to be moving that to Dr. Williams. So for families that have been utilizing the ASCCP program for a long time, that's going to be a big shift. But the new home office space will be at Williams Elementary, and Mr. Napper will be there as well. They will be sharing office space at that school. So I just wanted to say that. We've been getting a lot of calls. People have been asking, where do we go and what are we doing? And so here we go. Yay. You ready? Yeah. All right.
Our next study topic is a grant update.
And as we're getting ready, I'm going to invite Dr. Wiemelt and Ms. Tanya Deacon up to the mic. They're going to co-facilitate this next presentation. Dr. Wiemelt is here in his new role as Executive Director of Secondary Dual Language, Multilingual, and Alternative and Exclusionary Programs. Woo! We have to give him like an acronym with some letters or something. And then Tanya, as you know, is our Director of Student Learning and ESSER-based programs. I do want to give Tanya a shout out at the very beginning before we even get started. She has kind of been my partner, shoulder partner in the grant update, and I should have put more. This isn't a comprehensive grant update for the, all of our grants in the district. Very related more so to our anti-violence efforts. But Tanya has really done the lion's share of the work. I've been her partner, I'd say. We spent the spring writing many, many grants, which we're updating you on tonight. Dr. Wiemelt just started in his position in July, so he's been learning, and we've been trying to keep him up to speed on things, in April and May. But again, he was closing out a really busy school year, so he's jumping right in. So they're both here to kind of share a little bit about the grants that we've written, that we've received, and how we're going to be utilizing the funding. So I'm going to jump right in there. If you remember, I was here, we talked in May, maybe April, I think it was May or June, about the Anti-Violence Collective. So John, if you want to go to the next slide. Just to reiterate, the AVC, the goal of the AVC is to develop a diverse network of support to problem solve a systemic system to address violence in our schools and the community, our Urbana community. I shared with you at that previous meeting all of our founding AVC members. Maurice Hayes is in the audience from Neighborhood HVT. He's one of our founding members, and we meet almost every Monday morning. Joe has joined those meetings recently. Mr. Cooper from the middle school has come over and started joining those meetings as well. If you recall, we identified 30 to 50 High Hope UHS students most immediately impacted by gun violence, and those most connected to police-related incidents in the community or at school. That was kind of our group of students that we were really trying to wrap around this summer. We have been working with some of those young people, not 30 to 50. We did have some who signed up or who expressed interest, who just haven't engaged. And again, it's summertime. So we're really going to jump in head first as soon as school starts, really trying to get some of those young folks incorporated into some of the programming that we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes. If you remember the AVC, Mr. Nance, again, I know he's not here tonight, but he had shared his vision for the AVC, and he and I have been in a lot of spaces in the last few months really talking about the work. And as we've reiterated, it isn't something that we do as a school district alone. It really involves a lot of our community partners to be at the table with us, because as we've discussed, we can't do this alone. We need everybody working with some of our families that are most impacted by this at the table, and we feel really good about the progress that we're making. We started at UHS, but we're not staying just at UHS. We are going to be incorporating UMS students. We've already got a plan for how we're going to incorporate them into some of the groups that we're going to be offering very soon. So next slide. As we discussed, I've stayed in very close communication with the mayor, and I've been following the city council ARPA process. The district still intends to complete the grant process to access those funds as a partner with the city. The application process is not open yet. I've been told that it will open in August, and we are moving forward. I don't know, it took a while to get some of our contractors and those folks at our site, but they are there now, and the work is starting to happen. So just as an update, also, everyone saw the mural about the adult ed on the new proposed adult ed site. that Raphael completed this summer, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, we were hoping to be able to move adult ed over there a little earlier, but because the contract work and some of the people that were on other jobs, Randy and I tease a lot and say we're in the wrong business because right now contractors kind of hold all the gold cards, right? They come when they're ready to work and they charge us whatever they want. So some of that work is a little behind, so it doesn't look like we're going to be able to move adult ed as soon as we thought. We've been, keeping Shauna Shear apprised of the process and the progress that we're making, but we'll move them in as soon as we can. But the programming, because you're going to hear about this in the next few minutes, we have grant money that we have to spend. So we have to start moving forward with getting some of that programming going because we have, the people who have given us the funds expect us to start doing some of the work. So the grant, we've received some grants this summer. We have pending grants that Tanya's going to talk about here in a little bit, and a lot of the programs are really coming under that umbrella of our anti-violence collective work, but also just really thinking about a new framework for our students that we know are not responding to our traditional methods for schools, right? We're not trying, and we've talked about this here, we're not trying to create a new Ready, or we're not trying to create a space, the new restore space, that the buildings have. We're really trying to create something, I think, outside the box framework that is really going to hopefully change the lives of some of our students in grades 6 through 12 and their families. Dr. Weedmelt has, like I said, jumped right in, and this spring, as word traveled around the district that we were doing this, there were people who approached me and others just saying, I'm really excited about this. I'm so glad the district is moving in this direction. So we have some teachers, we have counselors, community partners, who have some of our clinical professionals, social workers who've said, I want to be at the table to help plan this. So we have our first planning meeting coming up really soon, where we're going to we don't have the step-by-step of what it might look like for a student at UMS or UHS who might take advantage of some of these opportunities during the day yet. We're really going to rely on our kind of stakeholder group to help us put a framework around that, and that work is starting tomorrow. Actually, we have the first meeting. So I wanted to give the board just a little update on, yes, we're still anxiously going to pursue working with the city, and I've been reassured that the city is very much on board with working with us. One of their priorities for their ARPA funds were really youth violence, community violence, health and wellness, which everything that we're doing really aligns very much with the goals that the city has set forward. So that is my portion of the update, and now Joe and Tanya are going to tag team some of the funding we've received and how we're utilizing the funds.
Yes. Okay, perfect, thank you. So, where do I point? Over there? I'm already there. Okay. So, yeah, it's on. Okay, good evening. Again, I just wanted to echo a few things that Dr. Aubrey Tatum said, and then I'll start speaking around into the grants. And Tanya and I are going to share, kind of go back and forth on the different grants that have been, that we already have received, and some of the grants that are pending. But I wanted to emphasize the importance of the ABC, the Anti-Violence Collective, and the collaboration there with our district stakeholders specifically, and how we can incorporate the two together with alternative programming. Really exciting time, because the ABC, now that I've attended a couple meetings, there are a lot of great community partners that are coming to these meetings and a part of the ABC, and it's like a group I've never been a part of. It's bringing together lots of different, as you already are probably aware, but wonderful community partners that are really committed to anti-violence work and working with our students and families. So a lot of times we do things in isolation from the community and other community partners, but I really envision this being a great partnership with lots of different community agencies and people. So the IDPH Mental Health Training Grant is one of the grants that we have applied for. And this one, as you can see on the slide, is specifically one in hiring an assistant director. This has been posted already. I believe it came out officially on Friday of last week. The assistant director will be, right now it's just posted as part-time, pending additional grants and funding that we are hoping to see in early September, so pretty soon. But the assistant director will be at the site at the old Comcast building. We have to name it something so we don't keep calling it the old Comcast building. But we hope to do that with staff and the community and students potentially and families. So the assistant director would be like the principal of the day-to-day school and program that happens during the day. And whereas I'll be helping oversee from a little bit broader perspective and helping with multilingual programming as well. We're hoping to make this full-time, like I said, in September. Additionally, with this grant, we'll be looking at a lot of mental health first aid training for different staff members. So that will range from our SRSs, student relations supervisors, student engagement advocates, as well as our mental health professionals, so social workers and CPs as well. So we're really looking at the train-the-trainer model around the mental health first aid. So really helping our staff that are working on a daily basis in our schools directly with students in the hallways, in the classrooms, at lunch, to be able to better identify mental health issues or needs that our students are experiencing. They're not going to be diagnosing or providing interventions per se, but they're better equipped to understand students and families' experiences and any trauma that they're experiencing. Additional safety training, youth mental health training for our SROs, which is a really exciting opportunity as well. The resilience education to advance community healing as well. And some of these that on this bullet point are the trauma-informed schools, trauma intervention groups, self-made kings, etc., are more of those intervention groups that we talked about as one of the goals of the ABC, so the Student Intervention Work Group. That's where we're getting a lot of the funding that will help support those groups moving forward. And restorative justice education. So we're working on a plan to really strengthen and broaden the number of people being trained in formal restorative practices work in schools, both for at UMS and UHS and at the Alternative Center, working with students. And so that's just a real quick overview of the IDPH grant and where some of this money's coming from. And you can see how much money is in each grant in parentheses there. So about $100,000 for this particular grant.
I couldn't, yeah.
So John, go ahead
John,
and just.
could you
click it.
advance the
Yeah.
slide, please?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. It's great to see everybody again tonight. We have had a very busy spring with lots of opportunities, so we tried to get as many of those in as we could. This grant, the R3 grant, is actually two grants inside one. So the first one is a planning grant to help us move forward and think about what we want, how we want to roll it out, and what it looks like. So having money for the training through IDPH, a little bit more training with the planning grant piece of R3 will be really helpful to us as we try to set our goals. This particular grant is funded through the cannabis funds that come in through the state. About 25% of all taxes are put towards this type of work, where we're supposed to be hopefully addressing many of the wrongs that might have been committed in society over the years, and trying to go ahead and get that our kids on the right path. It's meant for programs just like what we're talking about here. It's been an adventure. It's the first time they've done this one. They did it one other time on a smaller basis. They notified us ahead of schedule, which is a rare thing, so it was good to have that information. We learned about it through ISB when they posted it, and basically it's going to help us with our kids, help us set up the programming that we need. The planning piece of the grant is $36,000, and then I think if we want to go ahead to the next slide. Here, the second piece is the service delivery. So this piece will take place as we start to bring the students on site and doing work with them, getting prepared for them and for us to offer what we can as far as support goes. You can see the different things that we're purchasing or preparing for. We have restorative practices training. We have Edmentum or a similar product. When we did the grant, we had to give something specific, so that was one that was on my mind. However, I talked with our contact at R3 today, and she had said that the money amount is static, but what we use it for, everything on our list is approved. So we can pick and choose. So if we already feel we have enough restorative money going in the other grants, we can switch our focus a little bit on this one. So that's been really, it's going to be a great opportunity that we can take a look and see what do we really need. Zello is like an electronic portfolio career program where the kids can keep track of community service that they might be providing. We'll talk about Freedom School in a little bit. Any of the work that they might do as a project within that program would go in here. And it helps the kids if they're going to go on with their education, if they're going to apprentice into a trade. It has all of their documentation ready to go. So they can go ahead and move forward with their post-secondary plans. This would provide specific programming, as Dr. Wiemelt alluded to earlier, for our kids 6 through 12. And just outreach opportunities. So we might be able to take our partners and put some good work together with all of our strengths. And flip over to you.
So back to me. So the next slide is in regards to the Freedom Schools grant and after-school enrichment opportunities. So we're really excited about this opportunity and process for $350,000 per year for the next 3 years. And this will be dedicated to the after-school hours time, right? And so when we think about what we maybe haven't mentioned explicitly is as we think about the AVC and how we're referring students that are really struggling, that are high hope students, that have been experiencing challenges at being successful during the school day and after school at UMS or UHS, is really providing the Freedom Schools curriculum and programming from after school, so from 3:30, and we're hoping to well into the evening to keep kids in the safe spaces after school, off the streets and out of the neighborhoods, but really being supported right there at our after-school programming, particularly targeting the students that we know are struggling in and outside of school. And so this would be an opportunity for, of course, homework support and tutoring support, but also we really want to develop it to be much more of an enrichment experience. So bringing in community partners from different trades and teaching students about those trade areas, right? So for plumbing or so on and so forth. But also really looking at an engaging curriculum that keeps kids really excited about coming to the center. I can't call it the center either because we have the center already in town. But another opportunity for an after-school program that wraps around students and families. Our hope is that we can drive them home so they're not having to get on the MTD or losing their way as they're getting home. We can take them straight to their house. And really being intentional around being much more culturally relevant in this space, particularly targeting our Black youth, and with the Freedom Schools grant and curriculum and programming, we do have staff that have been trained or have worked in other Freedom School programming. So we're really looking to build on their expertise and experiences to really create an engaging space that kids feel like is a second home, where they feel safe, but where they can really pick up some new skills and get ready for post-secondary. Whether that's Parkland or the trades or whatnot, but really helping them develop a pathway to the next step. So that's the after school portion. So our goal is to have programming from 8 o'clock a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. in collaboration with the
If John goes to the next slide, you can
Next
see
slide.
all the bullets. Yep. there
Oh,
you go.
thank you. Forgot about the next slide.
Yep.
So there's just a couple more. I won't go through all of these, but really looking at the trauma-informed groups, providing that wraparound support and services, and continuing to develop those partnerships and the after-school coordination and support staff. So you will start to see some jobs being posted soon for this particular program. So we will be posting for a coordinator. That could be the assistant director during the day. It could be a different person. But this would be someone that is able to and devoted to working until well into the evening 4 or 5 nights a week. But also additional staff members to run the Freedom Schools, to implement the Freedom Schools programming and curriculum and everything else that you see there. So again, just really targeting students 6th through 12th grade that really need more intentional support. We're talking about students that have not been successful in Splash at the middle school, so we need something different for them. We're talking about students that are not attending all of their classes regularly. They're in the hallways or they're skipping or whatever it might be, really providing intense support across the street for those students and their families.
All right, there you go. All right, we're on to the COPS grants now. And again, there's 2 parts to this particular grant as well. The first one we kind of just call SVPP, which stands for School Violence Prevention Program. That particular grant is $350,000 spread out over 3 years. We don't have this one yet. We're optimistic, we're hopeful. so this particular grant is the one that provides us with equipment that helps us to keep ourselves safe, to help the students feel comfortable being at school. This is the equipment part, because John and I are always talking, so it's the equipment part, and the cameras. And we've talked about cameras, we've talked about metal detectors, we've talked about fobs for letting people inside doors. Again, it hasn't been approved yet, but they send us emails constantly, so I'm worried it's going to slip by one of these days in the spam of it all, giving us our information, but they stay in touch. The other part of the grant is the BJA, Bureau of Justice Assistance. This one is $1 million over 3 years, and this is more about the people that are working with staff, that are working with kids. I haven't been to the AVC meetings, but I've heard about violence interrupters as a position. That is something that this grant would help us fund, and we would have that for 3 years. It also would pay for the other half of the assistant director, if that comes through, so that we have a hands-on person. At one point, we envisioned that the assistant director would also be a person that would reach out to the rest of the district in doing work with circles and restorative justice practices. So we're trying to get a couple people that are in-house experts. So while our focus is primarily on 6 through 12, we do want to do some outreach, because we know that 4th and 5th grade can get a little dicey sometimes too, and we want to be able to help those students. So then if you wouldn't mind advancing,
I think
are we
that's
on the last one?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so
That grant also has teachers
Yes.
that we're hoping to be able for the credit recovery pieces and for that really unique outside the box programming that we want to offer. That grant would pay for a middle school or a high school teacher to be able to be in the space during the day from 8 to 3 to support students who needed whatever individual plan that we might come up for them around their scheduling or some of their classes that they are trying to recover credit for.
And so as Dr. Ivy Tatum mentioned, the last thing I'll say, and then we can open up for questions and conversation, is that, as she mentioned, this is not we're not planning for a program that will replace the READY program, or any other external placements that students could potentially attend. It's also not going to mirror it, right? So we really want to provide an additional layer of support and intervention on top of what we already have in place for our district and our community. But being much more, as Dr. Ivy Tatum mentioned, much more flexible in how we develop schedules for students, how we support them throughout the day. So it doesn't necessarily have to be you're either at the alternative ed building or not. It could be a hybrid, it could be a mixture, right? Students that are struggling in the mornings at UHS, we could look at being intentional with their first period class, or their second period class could be at the alternative ed site rather than at UHS, so on and so forth, right? But being very flexible and individualized for students under the broader programming that we want to provide. So it's not, our goal is that it also is not an automatic placement there just because of behavior, right? So it's not like an expulsion site per se. Our hope is that this is intentional before students reach the level of expulsion or significant types of out-of-school suspension. So it's an additional layer of intervention that we can provide for students in a more preventative way. And the last thing I would say is, as you saw, we have in terms of funding, received so far about $600,000 that has been already approved, and so with potentially more coming in the next couple weeks, up over $1 million for the year. So we have money that we're really excited about intentionally providing programming for our students that need it the most, right? And so we're really excited about that. And I think that was the last thing I wanted to say.
And I'm gonna, John, if you wanna go back to that slide. Today I was on I was asked to sit in on a ISBE listening session because ISBE is very interested in what they can do as a state board to improve the safety of our campuses and our schools. I think following COVID and with everything going on, ISBE's focus was on assessment and learning recovery and SEL and mental health. And I think as we've returned to school, they're seeing that our district is not alone in that our students are experiencing significant challenges behaviorally, just adjusting and just all kinds, the things that we've talked about with you guys. And so, I was asked to come and talk about Urbana a little bit with a group from ISBE. And they wanted to know, I don't know how they know, but they knew we wrote all these grants, and they've seen that we're doing some of this work. They've heard about the ABC. I think from our regional superintendent has been very supportive of our work, so I think he was kind of sharing a little bit about what we're doing. And it was really interesting. There are a lot of rural districts who are also experiencing, I was in that Zoom. There were about 4 superintendents from very small districts that are experiencing what we're experiencing, which was surprising. And so it really does, we really see that this is not just a small urban issue. It's not a big city issue. It is really touching every community. Despite the race or socioeconomic status, that was really kind of eye-opening to me. So they were really interested in some of the things that are metal detection, just a lot of the things that we are reunification. I just wanted to share that, and not to toot our own horn, but just the fact that everyone is experiencing some of these challenges. And I'm really proud of the work we've done so far, and just excited to see where we're going to take it next.
All right, board members, student ambassador, any questions, comments?
I would just like to make a comment saying thank you so much. I mean, I'm sure these grants don't just fall in your lap. I'm sure you have to really go out sometimes to look for these, but I think it's fabulous that we have such strong connections to the community also, and reaching out with different partners, finding out about these and actually pursuing these grants. I mean, this is a lot of money we're talking. This would be a fantastic help for many, many students, not only students, but their families, because it would affect the students, yes, but yeah, if the student is learning and have a totally different attitude, then that's going to come off to their families also. And oftentimes, they need that shining light, and I'm very happy that we're able to do that.
And Brenda, I'm glad you said that, because in the ISB session today, one of the ISB folks said they were really impressed with this, considering we don't have a dedicated grant writer. Many districts of our size, and Tanya has a ton of other things that she has to do. In addition to and you're right, it wasn't just finding the grants. They take a lot of time and coordination, because we have to have letters of support, and we have to talk to all of our community partners. We had to reach out to all the groups and get letters, and they had to say, we are going to partner with Urbana to do this work. But yeah, we don't have a dedicated grant writer when many districts of our size or larger do, and many people in the Zoom were very surprised by that. So again, I just wanted to say that out loud, not that I'm advocating that we need a dedicated grant writer, but just the fact that we were able to even get some of this funding, knowing that it was a collaborative team effort. Todd helped, Kim helped. It was just Katie helped. I mean, all of us, like when we needed something, the principals, like we had to bug Joe and Mr. Nance, and if we had a grant writer, they would be doing all that. But it really was a collective effort on the part of lots of people to get these grants written. And if we get the $1 million COPS grant, and the security grant will be game-changing for us in terms of the number of, like we're always saying, we need a camera there, we need a camera there. Well, we don't have $500,000 to spend on cameras. But if we get one of those grants, it will allow us to put cameras in spaces that we desperately need them. So.
And I was going to say, Brenda, just specific to the family piece, is part of the AVC are some community partners who are dedicated to family support in this work, which is really exciting too. So it's not just folks at the table for students only, it's also wraparound services for their family, which is exciting.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, a lot of times, I don't know whether people realize, when you say that price for a camera, there's a lot more than just a physical camera.
Oh.
You have to have all the other pieces, which cost money too. So I'm hoping that we do get this, because it would be very well needed, and I think it's great. We have a plan, we're trying to move forward, and all of the support is excellent. So thank you very much for all of the work that everybody has done towards this.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Ann.
Thank you. everybody, thank you so much. We've been asking for this, and we've all wanted it for years. I'm so pleased that I'm actually just, I can't believe it's actually finally happening. I wanted to know, I mean, and it's great because you've thought through everything, the mental health piece, which is so important, the academic piece, giving students a voice, and I want to see that it's going to help prevent all the bad stuff that we've had, especially with COVID. With that said, I know you can identify people to be in the program, but is it only going to be strictly voluntary, or, I mean, we've had kids who've had to have behavioral contracts, for example, and I don't want it to be a strictly punitive place, but I also want to make sure that the kids who really need it are still going to go, and we can give them some strong incentive to stay with it and to go because they need the help.
Yeah, it's a great question and a great reality of there will be some students that say no, right, if it's just voluntary. So we are in the early stages of planning that aspect of the programming, so policies and procedures, what qualifies a student to be referred to the right? All of those things are what we're going to start talking about tomorrow with this group that we're meeting with, the internal stakeholders within the buildings, and start really developing those policies. We're going to start making some site visits, have been written into the grant to see some other programs of similar type of intentionality and approach. So I can't say yes automatically and exactly what that's going to look like, but it's definitely part of our planning as we move forward in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
So.
Well, and I mean, because I know that comes with a lot of other issues. If there's kids who are not getting along,
Right.
you don't want to keep them in the same place every time when they move around. But
Right.
again, what you're doing is hitting on the social piece, because our kids, especially with COVID, are lacking so much in a lot of the social, mental health work that they need to be
Right.
doing to be in the same building as each other. So, but I also wanted to just quickly ask, where did I have it written down? Staffing the positions, because I know how hard it's been. We've all heard it from Dr. Avery Tatum and everybody, how hard it's been to get those support personnel in our buildings. And I really hope that if the money comes through, we can find staff. Do you feel optimistic that we'll be able to get people to come in and help?
I do, because, I think, the reality is we have a shortage of educators, but also just every field, right, is struggling with that, with applicants and people ready to work. I don't like to say wanting to work because it's more complex than that. But as Dr. Avery said and mentioned earlier, once my position was announced and we started talking about what we're hoping to do, like she said, we've had several people approach us saying, this is so exciting, I would love to help in the program and work in some capacity, keep me in mind, those types of things. And the nice thing is not all the positions are going to require traditional teacher licensure.
Okay.
So it will create some flexibility for folks that may not have gone to school with a teaching license, but are really excited to work with youth, right? And so, which is kind of what we did a couple years ago with the CPs and those sorts of things. I think we can be flexible around both licensed positions and non-licensed positions. I'm optimistic because I think we all know that the need is there, and I think there are a lot of people in our community that would be really excited to do this type of work.
And does that also go for clinical training? People who may not have all of the licensure that way, but they're willing to work on it. I don't know, does this grant help fund some of that education for them?
With the Freedom School grant in particular, that was part of something that we had to write in, that if we can employ people that are not certified now, but as a secondary level, work on a pipeline to get them into education or get them further advanced in their programming. Eastern Illinois University has offered to partner with us on that one.
Great.
Yes, so
That's
we have
great.
different partners in place, part of doing the grant, reaching out to people. Fresh Principal Nance can speak a little bit more to it than I can, but our EIU contact has been in the building working with the Social Studies Department, trying to make sure that we're being culturally relevant in our curriculum in the high school building. Same thing, then they want to be a part of it, even though they know they might not be the ones actually teaching it, but
Right.
if we need help with that, they can help us work on that.
Okay, great. Well, I really hope that once we get it going, that it just perpetuates and that we can, just maybe keep getting that grant money or whatever, that it becomes established to the point where everybody's looking to us and thinking it's a great program that we started. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I ditto. A lot of what's been said. I am super excited, especially about Freedom School. For those of you who are not familiar with Freedom School, you should look it up to find out some of the history. It dates back to the civil rights movement. It's really big in the South with low-income African Americans. One of the pieces I really love about Freedom Schools, and I've seen Freedom Schools done very well, and I've seen them not so well. I know Urbana's going to do awesome because we've got awesome people. But one of the biggest pieces that I like is the cultural appreciation. And I think it's very important for us to have a big focus on that, especially as we try to draw in some of the students, because I feel like students have been voicing for a while the lack of that cultural relevance in the schools. And I know that we're working to, change that. You've just talked about some EIU stuff going on at the high school, looking at that cultural piece. But if you're going to try to grab these kids at a time when they don't have to be there, you've got to have something attractive for them to be there, something that's going to make them say, instead of going in the streets, instead of going hanging with my buddies, I want to stay at school. And so it's important to find the right people that they are going to relate to, people that they're going to look up to, people that they're going to trust, and then just bring in those important pieces. I like all of the grants. I especially like the center, or whatever we're going to end up calling it. We talk about the expulsions that we have, and I wouldn't say, our numbers obviously aren't extensive on expulsions, but we would prefer not to expel kids at all. I know this is not an alternative to going to Ready, and some kids actually, quite frankly, do better at Ready, and that's where they need to be in some cases. However, I do think there are some kids that if we could reach them earlier, if we could understand that a traditional school day doesn't work for everybody, and sometimes they need that time away from the classroom to regroup, to whatever it is they need, and then go back, that student is likely to be more successful and have a less chance of seeing us at an expulsion hearing because they didn't have that success in the school day. So I'm excited about everything. Those are my kind of top pieces, but I'm looking forward to hearing more as we move forward with the grants that we do have and those that we're still looking to get. Thank you to everybody who took their time out. I know what that's like to do grant writing and to have to gather information and write it up and all of that. So we just appreciate whoever's going out, finding the grants and providing all of the information in a timely manner for that to get submitted. So thank you.
And like Joe said, we have some people, Tori, who are in our district who were part of the original Freedom School movement.
I know some of them.
Were here in this community, and they've come forward like, oh my gosh, did you know I was one of the, and we have some of our staff who were students in Freedom School when it was really thriving and robust here in our community, which is very exciting to see some of our staff that want to be part of this program because it impacted them when they were a kid. And I think the way ISB framed the grant, it really allowed us a lot of flexibility, which when we wrote this, we were like, they are not going to approve this. No way are they going to approve this. I mean, we put in things like getting your plumbing certification, learning about carpentry, and learning about being an electrician. And
with some paid opportunities for
absolutely.
students. We didn't talk much about that, but we did write in some stipend money for kids if they complete pathways toward, like benchmarks towards plumbing certification or the trades.
Which is the incentive, because we know some of our kids are making money doing things in the community that they should not be doing, illegally. This gives them a way, because making money is an incentive, right? That's an important reason why some of our kids are doing some of those things that they're doing. And they can make a little money and learn something new. And, Joe and I were just talking about this yesterday. We can say, oh, plumbers make really good money. That means nothing to a 15-year-old who is maybe out doing some of the things they're doing in the community, but until they meet an African-American plumber and that person says, I do this, I've been able to do all these things as a plumber. It opens the eyes of, I think, our young people in a very different way. We're excited about the pride and right now I think a lot of our kids don't have a sense of belonging. And that cultural piece that the Freedom School offers is really going to help give them that pride and belonging in I'm important in the history behind
Right.
it. So I really foresee it being, kind of just, really just impactful for some of our youth who we see them. They have, like Mr. Nance likes to say, 1 foot in the street and 1 foot in the school, but they really want to be at school, and they have all these outside forces pulling them in those other directions. So if we replace that with something else, it could be really, game changing for them. So
Yeah, and I'm here with my school board hat on, but obviously you all know I'm a HR director on campus. Let's
Yeah.
collaborate. I mean, we have a bunch of Urbana students on campus right now working over the summer, at-risk students that
Yeah.
are doing plumbing.
Yep.
I've got locksmith, I've got, they're doing all sorts of great things. So, let's pull
Okay.
in as many agencies as we can.
absolutely.
Anyone else? Great work, you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, appreciate it.
Next up is a update on our Thomas Paine construction by Randy.
I'll start off by saying this construction project's been pretty rough on our people that are doing the work, but I'm pretty proud of what they've been able to pull together and accomplish with the just crazy stuff that's been thrown at them trying to do this job pretty quick. We have Born Russo, we have Michael Hernandez, Kevin Adams, and Dawson DeGroot at Born Russo that have worked really hard on everything. And then the people at IGW, Scott, Cynthia, and Matt, have done a good job too with finding the workarounds for everything that's been kind of thrown at us. John, you got the next slide? Maybe. There we go. The completed tasks, the new north addition is enclosed with walls and roof decking. The interior walls are complete. Window frames and glass have been installed in the existing building. Where the renovation's been going on, which is about like 2/3 of the building roughly, the north and south wings. Geothermal piping is complete, has been tested. Summer 22 renovation areas will be, we'll have geothermal systems in place for the 23 school year. Remainder of the building will be completed next year. And again, that's about roughly like 2/3 probably the building is completed with geothermal piping, and ductwork is completed throughout the 2022 renovations. Mechanical units are complete. That's in the southeast section of the building. Plumbing, piping, electrical wiring are complete. And the interior courtyard has been, everything out of the courtyard's been just demolished down to dirt. Stuff that's currently going on, they're completing mechanical, electrical, and plumbing service to the north addition. New electrical transformer has actually been installed now. It's not being installed. They got that put in towards the end of last week. The operable windows are being installed right now. Painting's continuing throughout the whole building. Flooring, ceiling tile installation started in the 1972 edition. It's moving north. That also includes the new lighting. New floor tiles, plumbing fixtures, and toilet partitions are being installed in the restrooms. A couple of the restrooms are actually completed. New cabinetry is being installed in the 22 renovation areas. And the west parking lot paving is still sort of in process, but it's mainly done. Still need to be some striping, and they striping, and they finished the entry. They poured the entryway today to the parking lot. The interior courtyard area is being prepped for concrete, and like contractors are working on footings, foundation walls, and brick on the east additions. Some things to know, and we'll share this with the staff and families, is the sidewalk on the south side of the street will be closed near the intersection of Florida Avenue and Lincolnwood Drive. The sensory garden won't have its fencing up yet due to supply chain issues. And throughout the fall and winter and spring and next year summer, contractors will continue working on the north and east additions throughout the whole school year and stuff. And any work required on the existing buildings will be completed during the fall and spring breaks. Some of that stuff is might be installing a few whiteboards, cork strips, cork boards, maybe a few ceiling tiles here and there, just some of the smaller stuff. We plan on providing an update to student staff once we finish our punch list walkthrough on the 8th. Again, some of these items that won't be completed will be the tack boards and maybe some of the cabinetry. Most of the flooring, all the flooring should be installed. We did have an issue with some flooring, but I think we got it taken care of. Let's see. We've walked through a couple times with Tom Majors and Andrea Jackson, a principal and assistant principal for Thomas Paine, and have been discussing some important dates for them to pass on to their teachers and staff members. Some of these dates are August 8th. We're doing the punch list walkthrough with IGW and the design team, Warren Russo. Building administrators will occupy the main office and the entry corridor starting on the 8th. August 9th, myself and IGW and Warren Russo will have an occupancy walkthrough with the ROE, Gary Lewis and Donna Kaufman, and hopefully get our permits issued to us. August 10th, we're hoping to, like I said, we get those permits and we're able to do take the occupancy of the building. Teachers will be on site preparing their classrooms if everything goes well with the occupancy permit. August 10th will also be parents on site for registration, I believe. Is that right, Jennifer? If we get the occupation, yeah. Yeah. So the August 10th, parents can come in for registration if we get the permit, and then again, it'll be occupying the main office area. August 15th, major punch list items will be completed by the end of the day. August 16th, teachers occupy classrooms full time. August 16th is also back to school night, and students will be seeing their new classroom and their new building. Any comments or questions?
And then, John, if you want to scroll through a few that just, you hopefully looked
Oh,
at
sorry,
some
the
of
pictures. I forgot all about those guys.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Catherine went out and took pictures.
Yeah.
And
Catherine did a walkthrough, put her little hard hat on, and did a.
it changes a lot every day.
Yeah.
So these are a little bit older pictures. But
So the one on the left is with one of the new classrooms that's being built, and then just the hallway. You can see kind of all the way down at the end where it gets a little darker. That's where the old building starts, and this is all new. The top left picture is just them working on the paving. Kind of see what the new flooring looks like. Top right, bottom left, there'll be the just part of the bathroom. I was hoping to replace that one with a nice clean floor, but every time they get the floor clean, they dirty it up before I get a chance to get over there and get a picture. So it's sorry for the clutter. And then bottom right is the Cubbies, and there'll be coat hooks on the wall for the kids to put their backpacks and coats. Top left picture is part of the gym, just two partial walls of the gym. Top right picture is some of those footings, this will be part of the tornado storm shelter. Some of those footings are 3 or 4 feet in the ground and just full of rebar. It's pretty heavy duty process to pour those footings and everything. It's quite the chore. Here in the bottom left, those are some of the new classrooms. It's we did dance, drama, art. What's the third one?
Music.
Music. Thank you. And then bottom right's just another one of the walls that is going to be for those rooms. So you can see in 9 days, we went from having just some dirt and gravel to a actual parking lot installed. It's pretty nice, and that's all the pictures we have right now.
Right, board member, student ambassador, any questions? I have a quick one. I mean, I know we're a year off, and are we kind of ahead of schedule or on plan and behind plan? Just for the overall project?
I'd say we're pretty much on schedule. They've since we had that electrical. We're having some problems getting the electrical stuff in for the building, the big electrical panels. So that kind of set them a little bit behind, but they were able to make up for it by building that's where the gym was to go. They were originally supposed to start on the gym side. Since that occurred, they decided to go over and start working on the classroom side. So they do have a little bit of that work done now. So yeah, they should be on schedule for the most part.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much, Randy.
Thank you.
10.4 is a discussion on board committees. Dr. Ivory Tatum.
Okay, and I'm not going to take a lot of time, but I shared with the board the board committees from last year, just to kind of remind everyone where you supported and what committees you supported last year. Not all of these committees met. We didn't have contract negotiations. The wellness committee didn't meet last year. So I just kind of wanted to throw your interests back out there again. I know you shared those with Paul, and we'll encourage you to do that again. For those of you with really busy schedules, we have worked very hard this summer to actually provide in advance of you saying, oh, I want to be part of that committee, the schedule of when the committee is going to meet. I know last year when we started talking about committees, we were still kind of working on dates, and we didn't have a final schedule for many of the committees, but this document is it's still a live document, but almost every committee here has updated their dates for the school year. So, if Tuesdays, the district parent-teacher advisory group is going to meet on Tuesdays. If you know Tuesday is not a good night for you, then you maybe should let Paul know, hey, I may not be able to participate on that committee this year because I can't make any of the meeting dates. As you remember, last year we had a lot of discussions about OMA and what is considered a board committee, what isn't a board committee. And if you remember from the spring, the Equity Task Force is no longer meeting regularly as a board committee. They are right now working directly with Dr. Dubiel through the district leadership team. So that is not going to be impacted as a district working board committee. So right now, the District Facilities Property Committee is a board committee, and that is an as-needed committee, which last year, of course, Paul needs to be there as board president, but Brian also represented as our second board member. Those will always be meetings that we will notice. That involves mostly Katie and Randy and I. And then the other committee that is a meeting committee that we'll notice is the District Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee. And that is not so much because it is a working board committee, but primarily because it is part of school code, because we talk about student discipline there. It is also memorialized in our CBA. So it definitely has a lot of UEA representation, and we have parents there. So those are the two committees that we We'll notice meetings as we need to, but the rest of the committees are working either superintendent working groups or working with our administrative team like Todd or Katie's kicking off the wellness committee this year. Kim and several of her directors have several committees. So we have a lot of initiatives happening. We're utilizing every single dollar of our ESSER funds in very exciting ways. But a lot of that work requires committee work, and that, you know, that's how we get a lot of our work done. So I'm not asking you to kind of tell me tonight, you know, I want to do this, I'd like to be part of this, I'd like to continue there. But last year, I think our process was you let Paul know where you'd like to continue, what makes sense for your schedule, your interests, and then we'll go from there.
I'd also want to throw out there that this is a negotiation year.
Yes.
And it is an exemption in the OMA that we can, as many board members as who wish to participate can wish to participate in a negotiation session. So it's not, we're not limited to two. And the union has already reached out to us, stated they want to be aggressive in getting this done well ahead of time. The contract expires on June 30th. They want this done like February. Well ahead of time. So get ready this fall for a number of sessions that take some time. It's a lot of work, but it's necessary work, and would really like some help. So please consider it.
So if you have questions, we have all of the facilitators, whoever facilitates that committee is listed. So you can email them directly, you can email me. Let Paul know, you know, where you'd like to, you know, lay your hat this year, and what, I know some of you are involved in several committees, and we appreciate your time and, you know, away from your work and your family to be part of our committees. So, yeah, I think that's it, unless you have other, does anyone have any questions about any of the committees? I know we talked about them quite a bit last year, but.
Any questions, comments?
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys. 10.5. This is a item I asked to be put on the agenda because we talked about it. Our last meeting is a discussion on our board goals. We discussed them in very general terms. We met in June, and we thought we'd continue that discussion tonight if people had given it any thought during our month off. What I want to do is actually in the next meeting or two come up with specific goals and maybe specific deadlines that we can vote on and put on a schedule and a calendar. Because we had discussed in very loose terms a year ago about having like a midterm check, but it wasn't we didn't set a date, and it never got done. So I mean, this time around, I'd like to do things a little differently and actually kind of commit to some hard deadlines that could be adjusted, you know, with a board vote if needed to, but just a little more put a time, I guess, on some of these goals. So do you have the list from, I guess I should have asked you for that well ahead of time, not tonight, but going back to last spring, we had obviously the union contract is a necessary board goal for the year. We wanted to put a target date on our superintendent evaluation. So I think we want to get that done, completed by April. So we'd have to plan that, you know, if we start, you know, with a April end date, we've got to work backwards from there to figure out when the steps need to be done to get completed by that time.
One thing that was brought up tonight in the citizen statement, but also the dual language. So we've had a couple meetings this summer with the committee. So we are already working on timelines. We have dates. We are already planning when, you know, a couple times we're going to come back in front of the board with all the things that our parent mentioned tonight, but we're also already things that we're planning to bring forward based on our conversations.
Right.
So I can't think of anything that she mentioned that we have not been talking about. Can you? Okay, so we have a pretty detailed timeline.
I mean, Joe's still here, thank you.
Yeah,
too.
I asked him to stay
I
for
mean,
that.
that's so because you may want to do this a year from now, right? If we switch to switch our school model, you want to be implemented a year from. So, at what point would you need to know from the board a yes or a no in order to properly plan?
Yeah. So we discussed today, we had a meeting today with our
Committee.
elementary committee that made the recommendation. And what we talked, and I guess this is a good opportunity to make sure that this is in line with what you're thinking as a board, but our hope is to have an answer, like a yes or no, by December, by the first board meeting of December.
Wow.
And so of course we can adjust, but the later we go, whoops, sorry. The later we go, the more chaotic it will be, kind of like what I just did. No, but so when we think historically, when we first moved to dual language, that was voted, the move to dual language as a program model was voted and approved in January, and then which schools was voted and approved around March. And that was really tight from March to August to get that fully up and running. So our hope as a committee would be that if there's a decision made either way, to know in December, so that whether it's one school model or whether it's pivoting to different strand model or whatever it needs to be, that we have a full semester to plan that, plus summer.
And message it.
And messaging.
And get
yeah.
input
Yeah.
from family, yes.
And so what we talked about today was to put a timeline out to the community and to the board by August 15th. And what our timeline would hopefully look like would be in October, we could come to the board with 2 full out options to consider in terms of one school, what that would look like if it were Leal, what that would look like if it were at Dr. Williams, and get some direction from the board at that point about which school we should plan for if we are going towards one. So the idea would be, as a board, you would have these 2 options, all the scenarios, how this would impact families of dual language kids, of monolingual kids, staff on both sides of the programming, what this would look like in terms of redistricting, and then you would give us some guidance as to come back in December with a full out proposal for this school. And then we'll vote then if we're ready to make this decision for that school.
A piece of information we'll also need is what would the cost be of not
Yes.
changing, right?
Yes, and that's what we want to bring cost proposals in October to the board.
We're thinking
Well,
the October 18th.
I mean, cost in terms of not just money, but in
Yes.
terms of,
Transportation and.
yeah.
Yep.
And some are, and some
Well-
are unknowns because, until we actually say which program, which building the program might be at, if we were homeschool, we don't know how many families will opt out, how
Yep.
many families might say, yes, we'll go there, but my child's gonna walk,
Well,
or they're
I
gonna
was-
be
And
a car rider.
the reason for October was actually one of the parents on our committee it was a great point, really emphasized that, because we want to go back out to the families and community and explain why, and also outline what it would look like.
Well-
And her argument, or not argument, her request was that families would need more concrete information rather than what we were doing in the spring, right? Because the spring it was still pretty open and vague, but if we can, by October, be able to go to families and say, okay, here's what we're considering, a dual language school at Dr. Williams, this is how much it'll cost, this is what it would look like, what would happen to staffing, this is what would happen to students, transportation, so on and so forth, the pros and cons around that. And then we could tell families, this is what's being proposed to the Board of Education. The families would then be in the know, like what the parents said tonight. They might support one school, they just need more information.
Yeah.
So we want to have that information in October to the board, to families, with a little bit more direction, come back in December, and then it's a yes or no
Yeah.
on that proposal.
I guess I tried to be more clear. When I said cost, it really wasn't money.
Okay.
It's more like what services, what will we not be able to do if we stay with the strand model?
Yep.
Oh,
right?
yes.
That's
Oh,
part
yeah,
of it. Yep.
Definitely.
Yep.
We talked about a lot of those things.
And so what we're hoping for, this is great timing, I didn't realize
Yeah.
we'd talk about this goal tonight, but is by August 15th, be able to map out a timeline to be able to give to the board, to be able to give to the families and staff to know when things are going to be decided, and what the costs are, both financially and just programmatically, what would happen if we do and what would happen if we don't.
both schools have their back-to-school nights on the 16th, so we're gonna have a one-pager
Yep.
available at both of those back-to-school nights, kind of with some general information.
We'll be adding, our committee will be
Timeline.
meeting bi-weekly for the rest of the semester, and we are going to be adding some family members, parents to the committee. And I think that was it. And maybe some staff too, some monolingual staff also to the committee.
Definitely focusing on Dr. Williams
Yep.
because we didn't have parent voice from Dr. Williams. So we've actively recruited a few more people.
All right, I guess any other goals or any discussion on the current goals?
I think one of the things we really need to look at as a board, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right, go ahead, Brenda.
Is possibly redistricting. That does tie into the DL program a little bit, but it seems like some of our numbers are off compared to other schools right now in the district as far as attendance and things like that. We are expanding. We've done Yankee Ridge. Wiley's the last one on the list. What we need to do is really take a look and see about our attendance plans. I mean, we changed our sub-districts around, and I think that was fine, you know, but I think we really need to look and see where the concentration of the kids are. We do want neighborhood schools, you know, but we also need to look, because when these schools get so overcrowded, that's a burden not only on the teachers, staff, but also families. At pickup, at drop-off, we're trying to make it safe for everyone as far as some of the changes we've done to these schools. But when there are so many students at one specific building, it does make things very complicated. And I think if there's a way, we need to really look at that. I know it's a tough thing, but
Like a 2-year thing.
I
That's
really
not
think.
something we're gonna be able to do this year.
Yes. But I mean, the last time we did it, it was
It was
not
the
much
worst,
at all.
it's the
It was-
worst thing I've done as a member of this board, frankly.
Yeah, so I think we really need to dive
It was
deeper.
the most effort for the least amount of benefit.
So Brenda, I think to your concern, the 2 buildings right now that are experiencing the most overcrowding are Leo and Dr. Williams, which is why we're talking about dual language. I mean, that's kind of what precipitated the whole conversation is we had to, well, we've been doing it at Dr. Williams for 6 years.
Right, I know.
But this year was the first year we had to start sending Leo students to other buildings because there was no space in the monolingual classrooms, which is what got us to the conversation that we're having about dual language. So I think for us to be able to be, realistic, in a year, I think if we can solve some of our issues with overcrowding at Dr. Williams and Leo by making some changes, whatever they might be, with dual language, that will lessen a little bit of the
Right.
burden at those 2 schools, which those 2 are the ones right now that are the most
Imbalanced.
stretched in terms of class sizes. And so King right now is fine. Thomas Paine is in a good place. Yankee Ridge is in a good place. Whiteley is in a really
Plenty
good
of
place.
space at Wiley.
You're right. We definitely need to look at our attendance boundary areas
And I do
and talk
understand
about
that
Wiley.
DL
but
goes
yes.
hand in hand with that, but
Yes, that
I
is going
really
hand in
think that it's time we start the process and kind of dig deeper
I
into
think
this.
we need to do this first, and then
Yes,
once
yes.
we've kind of decided what we're doing and what the impact
How it's
and the
gonna trickle
outflow is
down.
going to be. Yep, because there are going to be a lot of decisions around, whatever school. If we go to a whole school model, whatever school we choose, then the impact on the other school. And to be trying to talk about redistricting at the same time, I think
Well-
will be really, really hard.
Okay.
And we have a union contract to negotiate, and we have to do that.
We have to do that. But I agree. I think Kim and I, we are right there with you. It needs to happen. I just don't think it can be something we can have as a priority for this year.
Okay, and I understand, it's a long process. I mean, I'm not saying just go in and uproot
Yep.
all of these families and students, I'm not saying that at all, but I think we do need to look at that in the future, and hopefully with our decision on the DL program, some of that might have that trickle-down effect, which could kind of alleviate some of the issues, but
And I
we
think
don't
we're
know, we
gonna-
haven't made a decision
We're gonna be
yet.
doing some of that prep work. I mean, we're going to be looking at where students live, who's on a bus, who's not on a bus, who's a mile and a half within their school, just not for all 6 schools. So we'll be doing a little bit of that work, like kind of pre-work, I think, for redistricting, but not going as deep as what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, trying to jump back into the timeline that you proposed, so my apologies if I get the dates wrong, but one thing that I think is really important to me personally, probably to others, is making sure that the information that's coming in is consistently going out, and then we're getting the input back from the community as well, because the way the last one, even though the board kind of knew what was coming, we were kind of hit with the community in a very short period of time, which makes it extremely complicated for us as board members to try and sort through a lot of information. So a couple things with the August 15th calendar, I wonder, or the timetable, I wonder if there's a way somehow in there we can build in what information you expect to provide us in October so that we don't surprise you in October with, oh, by the way, we need all this other information.
Yeah.
Or whether, I guess, whichever direction you all would find it most useful, do you want the board to say, here's all the information we want, and maybe you've already done it, maybe you haven't, or would it be more helpful or more efficient for you to tell us what you would be putting in these proposals so we're certain we have the information, we don't hold up a vote down the road, and then also making sure somewhere in that process, you know, the community was really crying for more input in terms of a survey, in terms of, you know, really giving voice to a broader community.
Yeah.
I think it would be a misstep at this point if we don't have that information built in, which you may already have planned. So just making sure there's enough time at each of those intervals where we're getting the input from the community that's kind of not after the, you know, between the time when the meeting is noticed and then we sit.
Those are great points. I'm not sure. I think we have, so what we have done our last two committee meetings was we literally took all the comments, like the points that public comment was making and your requests, and just put them in a long list and then divided those up into where they fit in that framework that we use to evaluate our programming. And now we're answering those. Those are tasks that we have assigned individual people of the committee to start working on between now and each meeting. So I think that we have everything that you've requested. We're working on it. And we're working on everything that families and anyone who provided public comment or emailed the board that we got. We're putting all that into tasks to answer, to bring back to you in October. Well, the goal would then be in October with a recommendation not a recommendation, with here's what this would look like at Leal, here's what this would look like at Dr. Williams, and then ask for some guidance from you as a board to say, bring back a proposal considering this school or not. And the reason for that would be the family perspective today on the committee was families want to provide input, but they need a little bit more information to provide that input. And what she was suggesting was input based off a school that has been potentially like chosen if the board approves it.
And I think the committee will bring a recommendation, and then the board will either
In
say.
in December,
We agree with that? No, I mean like in October.
For which school?
For
Okay.
which school?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And then the board will either say, yes, we agree with that committee, keep working for the next 2 months and come back to us in December. Or you might say, no, we just want to pause this now and not move forward. Or give us more direction on what we haven't brought, which you would like us to. I think we have thought of we have gone.
So. We literally copied and pasted all the questions, requests.
And we had several teachers from both schools.
Yep.
So a lot of people have had their eyes on it. So.
But we do need, I still think we need to give parents, that's why this timeline shared out, so people at least know, okay, here's when decisions could potentially be made, but also provide some opportunities for family input up front, saying we have not made a recommendation for a school yet, but here's your opportunity to provide a little more input, make the recommendation for school in October, go back to families, provide more information and gather more input to come back in December. I think we need to do both, so that would be our goal for families, because there's still families that we want to talk about the why with. Why we think as a district administration, as a committee, this is what we should do. There's still a lot of uncertainties as to why. It's like, where is this coming from is still one of the big questions, right? So that's what we're envisioning.
Yeah, I think that makes good sense
Okay.
to me. I think that will hit all the points. One other comment, and I don't know who, maybe I'll direct it to Dr. Avery Tatum. And this is thinking about the two things we have going on related to equity kind of at the same time. So one is DL and one is the equity audit. And I'm wondering what information, if we make a decision in October, December, whenever that is, how does that line up with any information we might learn from the equity audit that should be informing any part of this decision?
So we've already set the dates for the year for the audit. I mean, we had a full day of planning. We already have carved out a couple weeks throughout the year where we're going to be doing focus groups and surveys, and we've already shared those dates out to all the principals and said you cannot send any surveys because we want the focus during those times to be dedicated on equity. And you know, we don't want to have our DL survey floating around out there at the same time where we're trying to survey everyone in the district about the equity audit pieces. So we've already carved, you guys don't even realize how hard it is scheduling things like this, and we've got we've got map assessments, we've got all these different, windows of time where we need to engage our families, but we also want to do it in a meaningful way where we're not asking them to fill out 3 surveys at all at the same time. So most of the equity data crunching is going to happen in the fall, and the spring is going to be analysis and really looking at, so I think we've already kind of planned out the year for the audit. So unfortunately, I think those two things are going to be kind of running simultaneously at the same time. So we won't be able to inform which school it will be, as part of the audit, because again, the audit is much bigger than just Leo and Dr. Williams and dual language. But I don't know if that answers your question, but I think we have been really thoughtful about making sure that we are collecting the information and getting what we need, but not overlapping, and expecting people to engage in surveys and focus groups multiple times for multiple different things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. And it was less about that, more just kind of making the concern, of course, would be that something comes up that then we say, oh my gosh, we made this decision, and the auditors or the audit team has uncovered whatever they've uncovered in the spring, and we can't reverse course. I'm not suggesting you change the calendar or anything like that. I was just getting a sense of what if, and maybe
Sure.
that's a what if that we deal with later.
Well, I think if that happened, there are enough of us at the table and involved that we would, insert that in as a problem that we need to discuss or consider or something.
Anyone else? Anne?
Well, first off, to go along with what we were saying about the superintendent evaluation, I thank you for bringing that up in April because we may potentially have new board members. So we'll wrap that up. And at the end of our last meeting, John came and talked to me about some ideas that he had about ways that we can streamline the evaluation process, which I hope I can tap you to keep me updated on that over the coming year so we can let you guys know, what new tools we'll be using. But along with that, we should probably also conduct a self-evaluation for the board because now our board members sitting here, the newest ones, have been with us now, and we all have had a year together. Can't remember the last time we did a self-eval. Have we done one in a long time? It's been years.
It's been a very long time.
Yeah.
I would like to perform one of those and also potentially even, I don't know how other board members feel about this, but potential mentorship ideas for board members, especially if there's going to be veteran board members staying on who might help new incoming board members. To me, it's just been an ongoing thing I've thought about since I joined the board about ways that we can mentor new incoming board members, both us as a group here, but also tap into resources that we could get use from our, division director and SB and everything like that. And then lastly, is there a way we can talk to our student ambassadors? We have plans to talk to them about ways we can keep building on the program, get our feedback. I'd love for there to be a presentation at some point in the school year to find out how they've been doing and their ideas about how to improve it and spread it, because I know that we want to spread it and go much deeper in than we've just started. So those are things I'd like to talk about this year.
Anyone else? I'll throw one last one then. I think our plate is probably too full to add this, but all this work we're doing is probably going to be leading into a strategic planning.
Yeah, we've talked about that, yep. So we talked about that during our time with Dr. Dubiel when we were planning for the equity audit, and so that takes priority because we want the strategic plan to be framed around our equity goals and priority areas. So
Right.
unfortunately, since we won't have the results from the audit until the, April-ish, March-ish, we may be able to start some strategic planning engagements at the end of the year and get a team together. But I think that probably will be the most we'll be able to
No,
do.
I
But
mean,
definitely it's something we talked
To
about.
do it right, it takes almost a year to do it.
Yes.
So.
But at least we'll have our equity priority areas that will kind of drive that work.
Okay.
So.
All right, anyone else? Okay, so I guess what I'll do then is I'll throw together, I got a list of things we have hard dates for up and put it on an upcoming agenda for us to vote on, so we can get, and at that meeting we can amend things based on people's calendars, et cetera.
And I'll work with Kim, just like we did last year. We had those kind of strategic curriculum and instruction assessment updates, school improvement updates will need to come forward at different points during the year. And grants, of course. I know it felt like a lot at the end of the year, but unfortunately that's when we're kind of compiling all the grant data and pulling everything together. But
one other thing I'd like to add, which we've talked about before at meetings, is I think it would be important to get an update from our SROs at both the high school and the middle school, maybe mid-year or something, just to check in with them, see how things are going, things like that. We've talked about doing a review for them, so I think that's important to keep us abreast of their duties and the positive outcomes that they've been having, so
we can do that.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you very much, this is a great discussion. Moving on to our action items, first up is a list of personnel items that, as typical for the beginning of the year, is rather long. Does anyone like to make a motion on our personnel items?
so moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? A roll call, please.
Member Hasanaka,
Yes.
Member Ogalski,
Yes.
Member Hall,
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes, Vice President Exum,
Yes.
and President Pulaski.
Yes, and we've already done 11.2. 11.3 is advance approval for July bills and checks. Katie?
Hi, this is a normal action item since we're not meeting on the third Tuesday, so many of our contracts state that payments will be made to vendors on that third Tuesday following board approval. And so we ask for advance approval whenever our board meeting doesn't fall on its usual scheduled date. But the reason I wanted to, I think this is a normal thing you're all used to seeing, but the reason I wanted to speak up quickly is just to let everybody know that when we do meet on August 23rd, the format of all of the list of bills that you will be seeing, we're talking about changing it. So rather than having lots of separate reports, like these were the manual checks that were written in the first 2 weeks of June, and these were the manual checks written in the second 2 weeks of June, and we're talking about just doing it for a date span from the last time the board met to the next time the board met. And so if you're open to that, I know we actually talked to Carol about it before she retired, and she was like, yeah, and my opinion is as long as you're getting the comprehensive information, that's what's important.
Yep.
And we won't release checks until after that board approval, just like we always do. It's just more of the manuals that go along those dates, that you won't have the ones that were before the last meeting and after the last meeting.
Right.
It'll just be a sequence from date to date. So we're gonna go ahead and try it out. If you have any feedback to me, if you wanna go back to the old way of doing things, we're very open to that. But we're gonna go ahead and try it. We think it's gonna create a lot of administrative efficiency for us rather than having to run 10 different reports.
All right. Is there a motion?
I motion to approve the July bills and checks.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Member Hasnaka?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Ogalski?
Yes.
Member Carter votes yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Pulaski?
Yes, there is no call for a future special or executive meeting. Superintendent's report.
Okay. So a couple celebrations and then some housekeeping and announcements. So yay. Remember Sola Grasha was here. They did get the $100,000 implementation grant. So they've moved forward. They've been working with Angie to create the farm to school coordinator position for the district, and then really find the garden leaders for each school and start working on the educational kits. We've listed, and when we share this out in the board update tomorrow, we have the link there so people can hopefully see this and go in and apply for the position. So yeah, that's exciting.
Nice.
Next week is UHS freshman transition. This is something we started, in the last couple years. So this is an intentional focus on our 9th graders going into the high school, very much like 6th grade transition day. They get to kind of walk around the building and see where lockers are. And, our high school is very large. And I think until the 9th graders are in there and actually see, you have so many minutes to get from the 3rd floor of this building all the way over to, right there by Iowa Street, and how important it is that they are moving and not stopping. So we'll feed kids that week, and here is the sign-up link. So if parents are still, our 8th grade, our rising 9th graders, wanting to participate, it is not too late. You can still sign up to be part of that. Opening day, we met with Paul and I had the privilege of being with the new teachers yesterday at UMS, and so one of the things I shared with the new teachers is, a lot of school districts, the opening, first day of school is kind of, a chore, but we celebrate it here in Urbana. It's a big day for us, and we look forward to it every year. We spend all summer planning for it. And so opening day is Tuesday, the 16th. We have all staff members attend. Board members are always welcome. Paul will welcome our staff back. We have the mayor usually comes. She hasn't confirmed yet, but she is trying to make it, hopefully. We have Kelly Hill there from CU Schools Foundation. Our UEA usually welcomes everyone back. We have the band, and it is really a nice way we celebrate students. Some years we have a keynote speaker. This year we were not able to pin down the keynote speaker that we wanted. But Dr. Dubiel is going to be working with us throughout the year as to bring back the Equity 101 Professional Development Series. We haven't had any equity training or PD for 5 years. Is that right, Joe? And so we're really excited to be able to offer 9 classes, courses, PD trainings at every single school. And so she'll kind of offer a welcome because she will be working basically with every building. She'll also be in all the spaces as her team as part of the audit. So she will kind of she was going to Zoom in because she couldn't be here in person, but we think she's going to send us kind of her greetings in video instead. But the afternoon, all staff members will be with her for the first Equity 101 training that day. So we're really looking forward to having some common language around equity, around terms, around just all of those pieces to really ground us as a school community. We've kind of lost that in the last few years with so much turnover and so many new staff members. So that is why our focus of the day is equity in action. And we'll be sharing some, much needed important information with the staff about the audit and how we expect them, and we look forward to them participating in the process. We don't, we really need our staff to be part of the audit process, and so we're going to really push home on this day why it's really important. So that is the postcard that everyone received in the mail. CU Days is coming. We celebrated at Jetty Roads Day, and unfortunately got rained out, but it was a great turnout and a lot of resources from the community. CU Days is very similar, except it's in Douglas Park instead of hosted in Urbana. We'll be out in Douglas Park with our tent giving away school supplies on the 13th, so stop by if you're there. There's music, there's usually groups, and it's a little bit bigger than Jetty Roads Day because both school districts are there as well as all the community partners. So it'll be a fun day, and we look forward to seeing our families stop by our tent that day. We're also going to be part of a community school supply giveaway that is happening this Sunday at Napleton's Auto Park. We're one of the sponsors for this in collaboration with some of the African American churches in town, some of the fraternities and sororities, and they're going to be giving away school supplies Sunday. Larry Simmons, I've asked him to be out to really help if there's some people looking for a job. We're going to have a table set up. We're going to have Chromebooks out there for families who have not registered, because we still have a lot of families who need to register. So if you haven't registered, please register. But we'll also be giving away school supplies at the same time. A recognition and celebration is another award for our fabulous Jill Lagersam, who was recognized by the National Art Education Association for one of her virtual art shows. So some of her artwork was showcased, and this is a national recognition. So we're so excited. Jill is just phenomenal. If you don't know her, you need to. So was one of 80 pieces selected for the exhibit, and more than 425 pieces of art from around the world were submitted. So we're really excited that one of our own folks was recognized in this way. So congratulations to Jill. Project Ignition, remember they were here at the end of the year. They received a special recognition from Senator Bennett as the Illinois Safety School Club of the Year. They've been out all summer doing activities. Park Mitchell, who was here with us, was also recognized for being the Outstanding Youth Safety Student of the Year. I think Park is going to be going to the U of I in the fall, and we're really excited for Park, and congratulations to Project Ignition. Yeah, he's part of Summer Youth Deployment, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Excited
Marketing
for them.
at DIA, actually.
Yay. Wonderful. So physicals, we're still really pushing this with families. We know, don't wait till the very last minute. There are a couple weeks left. Our school-based health center is open and eagerly willing to provide physicals and dental exams. So here's the information again. We keep sharing this out, and just didn't want to miss another opportunity to share it again. And we've already talked a little bit about the vaccine clinic. That will be in the small gym, UHS, for our students and staff ages 5 and over. We hired several new staff members, and so there were some questions from our new staff members is, can we get the vaccine? Are you going to do a clinic? And so here we go. So our new staff, new families, we encourage them to participate. We are not doing sign-ups. It is just going to be a walk-in. So if you share if you know anyone interested, just share Friday, August 12th, 1 to 3. They don't have to have a set appointment. We are asking people to kind of sign up just to make sure we have enough vaccine, but they can just come anytime during that 1 to 3 window.
Now, does that include booster?
Yes, boosters, vaccine, anything that is, go ahead, John.
Boosters and vaccines. If you're waiting for your second booster, there will probably be the bivalent booster I think we mentioned earlier. And signups aren't required, but we got a kind of small number based on our past vaccine clinics. So if you are planning to come, I think Catherine sent out just your name and date of birth, just so we have an idea of how many people to get vaccine for. So please sign up there.
And I think lastly are just dates that are on the agenda as well. So our opening day on the 16th, first day of school for K through 6 and 9th graders only. And then on the 19th, everyone is in attendance. So it'll be here before we know it.
Summer went quick.
It went too fast.
All right, board reports. I have one quick one. I'd like to congratulate Jackson Gilbert for getting 4th place in the country at the USA Track and Field Junior Olympic
Nice.
tournament in Sacramento last week. So his time was like, what was it, 48.39 seconds.
Wow, do you have any pictures? We need to get some pictures.
Yeah, it's on Facebook. but
Okay, we'll get some.
that's the only thing. That's it, sorry. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, one quick one, if we're talking about running, the Prairie opener for the UMS middle school cross-country team is on the 13th. And it's a fun one because there's a youth race beforehand that some of our little elementary school cross-country kids come out for. So come out to Prairie Park. I think we start at 8 in the morning or something. It's such a fun event, and we're August 13th in the morning, Prairie Park. Come on out and watch the little ones run, and then watch this great UMS cross-country team run.
But, that's it. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and thanks, everybody. See you in 3 weeks.